what happened when I gave myself 48 hours or less than to outline a 125,000 word novel using John Truby's 22 steps that he oversees in the anatomy of a story? Well, we're going to find out, and this might be one of the craziest things I've ever done in terms of outlining. This is Josh. He owns Mad Red Books, and I think it's a great bookstore by my house, so it's going to be fantastic.
Come on in and see us here 7 days a week.
So post-editing Paul here, I forgot to mention what the project's called. It's Project Blade, and truthfully it's a cyberpunk samurai story, and I think that was the really basic, the overview of what we're writing. So yeah, I just want to quickly include that before we continue. So let's continue the vlog. It's about 11 p.m. on July 4th, and basically we're going to jump right into what John Truby calls character surgery, and that is trying to find the heart of the main character's core, because that's what really drives the plot forward, is what their beliefs are and everything else. So we're going to go jump right into that for part one. We're going to probably lock in here for a few hours, and then we're going to get all the characters lined up, and we'll go from there. So, I just finished the main character of the story. It's one of those things where I just realized that there's a lot more that you had to go into. Like, truthfully, I thought it was going to be like, I could get all the characters done tonight. Truthfully, it ain't going to happen. And so I'm going to really focus in on doing the rest of the characters tomorrow and kind of lock in on finishing up finishing up the loose ends on the main character, the protagonist of the story. And overall, it's funny because, a lot of these stories do start off with a very traditional trope in terms of how they start off the samurai's journey and the Ronin. So it's kind of like, it's weird because I thought about doing something unique, but at the same time I was like, it just felt like, this was the best way to go. And it's just like, how do we like spin it around and everything else? So, having that moment, the outline, the ghost moment of the story is a big part of the backstory. And, we gotta it's like identifying, do we start at that point or do we do it in small bits and pieces over the course of a flashback? So it's like a very interesting thing that we're gonna have to discover over the course of the plotting of the structure. But I think overall it just felt good to really identify what he needs, what character wants, what the desires and what the subconscious desires are. And I think that's a big thing. I think getting those things fleshed out and everything else kind of created was vital, especially in this session, because I think at this point, we're working with a blank slate, and I think the biggest thing for me was not working too hard, because I'm going to go to bed here shortly. I only took an hour to outline, but I think I got farther than I thought I would in terms of the character, and I think it's important for us to recognize that tomorrow we got to get the rest of the characters locked down, and then we start pulling plot points, and then all day Sunday's plot. I think that's the biggest thing in the 22-step process. So a lot of it does have to do with that. The most difficult part I found, however, was the moral compass. I think that was something that, you kind of have to really think about, because if you don't think about it, what's going to happen is that you have a character that's going to be with no moral drive, and what is the grounded nature of this character? For mine, I have a code, and it's very simple, and I can truthfully, it's just it's easy to follow. So I think it's just a matter of how do they make decisions and going inside the mind of the character a little bit. So that's very much a difficult thing. But I finally understand what drives them. I think that's a big thing. I understand what drives him as a character, and I think it's important for us to recognize that it's going to take some time, and I think we can't just rush this process. So I made the critical mistake of coming to St. George for today, where I've got nothing done. So we're going to see how much I can get done in the next few hours before we drive back and figure out how I'm going to finish this challenge in 48 hours, next 24 hours. So we'll see how it goes. Voiceover Paul here for a minute. I think the biggest thing that I learned from St. George, I was able to read and recap some of my notes from the Truby book. As you see here, I'm reading again, so it's just overall just putting it all together and everything else. So I just felt like it was an important thing for us to really come home and be ready to go for at least for a few hours. So, and that's what I accomplished, and I'm really proud of myself for that. At least getting something done today. And I think it's important that we walk in soon and we get it done, and let's do it big. So honestly, mistakes were made today. I went to St. George inexplicably with my family. I don't know why I did. I think I just need to just have a relaxing day away from things and computers. But overall, I did some reading. Overall, I think I didn't do too much writing while I was out there, but truly kind of like allowed me to relax a little bit and just really focus in on a lot of the different things I needed to do for the story. I think it's about 2:13 right now on Sunday morning, and that was Saturday before, and I just spent a lot of time on just finishing up the characters. I think truthfully, the characters, when you're outlining in John Truby's method, is so important. I think without the character motivations, I think you find yourself in the position. This is all my notes that I had for characters, so I was like building them out. But I think overall, like I'm looking at this whole outlining for tomorrow, and it's a 22-step process for the 125,000 word novel. And we're looking at a situation here where, it's just a lot of plot points. It has a roughly estimated chapter length between 28 to about 28 to 43. And that's an interesting philosophy because, I do have my characters all lined out, and I think that was a big thing for me, was having all of them kind of have them all ready to go. I think that was important for me, to have the antagonist ready to go, and having the protagonist and side characters kind of lined up and how they impact everything. With Truby, you really do a lot of different things to connect and make sure all these characters are connected in one way, shape, or form. So that was a big thing for me when I was outlining the characters today. So tomorrow, we're probably going to get up in about 6 hours and trying to get ready here, and overall just try and prepare ultimately for a final push on getting this outline done. I think I'm pretty close. All I gotta do is lay out the plot, and I think when it comes to the plot, I think I'm very good at that. I think it's one of my areas that I do find as a strength, because I feel that putting the story together and telling the story how I envision it and everything else, just like the bare bone skeletons, will be fine. It's just now when we get to the nitty gritty and filling in the nuances of the story, it's gonna be a very difficult thing. So, overall, I think tired, and truthfully, my hero is really coming together, but everything else, based on last night, it was I was hoping to kind of get this character analysis done so I can do some plotting today, but I think it's okay. I'm feeling a little behind the 8 ball, so to speak. It's 2 a.m. I gotta get up at 9 a.m. tomorrow to continue doing this. So will I make it? It's gonna be a little tight. I think we have a whole day in terms of how we're gonna approach this whole situation. It's 8 p.m. Like we said, 8 p.m. It's gonna be 2:15 right now. So overall, I just think we're going to go ahead and just keep working and just work with it and everything else. So yeah, let's go with it right now. Well, it's noon, so we didn't wake up at 9, 3 hours late, but we could just schedule, make it easy for us. So it's just a matter of getting the plot outline done, and once we finish that, hopefully we can get this done before 8. We'll probably take a break somewhere around 6, so we'll go about a couple hours writing, and then we'll kind of take a break, and then we'll do natural breaks and everything like that. So hopefully we get this thing done. It's only outlining the plot now, not a whole big plot in terms of scene by scene, but rather just something more along the lines of basically just the big picture, and then we go scene by scene after. So we're going to take care of the smaller picture, the big picture stuff, that we just go micro from there. So yeah, let's get started. How difficult this was going to be, and how much brain power it's taking, because truthfully, I just going through this outline, and I think I'll share the skeleton outline of the baseline I'm working with here, but truthfully, it's it's mentally exhausting. I think it's just it's been an hour and about 10-15 minutes, and I've been working. I think I've been working a little too long in terms of straight work, so I'm gonna go take a break here before I'm up to 4:22, so I'm on pace to kind of do this in a couple hours. I think just generally we're at the process of trying to make sure this happens. And like I said, this is not really a fully fleshed scene by scene, but it really is identifying all the points that will make a good organic plot, because it's one of those, I'm not necessarily like writing scene by scene. I think that's important to kind of keep my flexibility, but I think also at the same time I'm trying to like make sure all my character motivations and action they would take into situations are accurate. So it's just a lot of like grinding and trying to figure this out, but I think we're in good pace right now, and I think we can make it by 8. Alright, so it's about 6:30. I've been working on this pretty heavily in the past few hours. We got one phase left with 90 minutes left to go on the challenge, and ultimately this is going to come down to can I really tie this up neatly. Got through phase 1 and phase 2 really well. It's now phase 3, which is the final phase of writing everything. It's just kind of like the last, I would say about the last 15%. So hopefully we can actually get to finishing that up. But first I need to eat, so I'm going to go ahead and grab a bite to eat real quick. And then from there we're going to, finish this up and hopefully hit the deadline. If I'm a little late, I just want to get done before 8 o'clock. But ideally I think I can get it done in the next, 90 minutes. So I will probably be late, which is fine. 8:30, 9 o'clock is fine. Unfortunately, with the St. George thing, and kind of did that in me yesterday, so it's fine. But overall, it feels good. Well, we finished. It's about 8:45. 45 minutes later than I wanted to, but truthfully, the greatest thing is that the outline's done. I think it's fantastic. I think hitting all the points of Truby's 22-step process and the creation of characters really made the story really fun to outline. I think, truthfully, I've never had more fun creating something, and now I look forward to writing the actual long-form novel. And I think that was the biggest thing that I really wanted to enjoy over these it took about total about 12 hours out of the 48, but truthfully it was a lot of time that I took in there. But if I probably would have had it done yesterday, truthfully. If I didn't go to St. George and I didn't wake up late today, and truthfully it's just part of the game. But truthfully, we got it done. Technically, while I wanted to get it done by 8 p.m., that was more of a personal goal. Technically we did fulfill the challenge of accomplishing it in 48 hours, because we started at 11 p.m. on July 4th. It is only 8:45 on July 6th. So all things considered, it's a win by technicality case. For personal stretch goal personality, probably not a victory, but overall it was a good experience to really do. So what did I learn from this experience? Truthfully, I think I came up with a wonderful plot. I think hopefully that I can execute now this plan that I created, because John Truby's method really was fantastic. You thought about how every impact organically built to the next, and how it overall lays itself out to the great grand scheme of things. And I think that was a really big deal for me, was to able to come on and just look at it from the perspective that I was going to write a very good story. And I think the outline here, I think it's very well done. I think it's a massive undertaking I took. I don't even know how many pages this is. Looking at it right now, it is the plot itself is 14, and the character Bible is about 27. So it's that's a lot of stuff for the outline. The characters are a big deal. I think making sure the characters in line, I'm doing by that first. I think that was a very vital part of the whole process. I don't think if I don't do that, I probably don't finish. I think truthfully, just being able to have the character outline done, I think that was a vital part for me. And just having it ready to go, so I can just refer to all the needs and wants and desires of the various characters. And I think that was a big thing. And I think having that was so helpful overall. And I just feel generally good about it. I think we did the scene level work, and we did the things that were needed to do in terms of bringing it to life. And 22-step process, and I'll show you everything else. 22 steps is pretty hectic and everything else. And I think the flow and everything, it felt really good. I think the flow, read through the flow check, and I did that. So overall it was a really good, thorough outlining experience for me. I just think that now we have to execute the plan of getting it done. So, but I have the question for you. What is your biggest outlining challenge? I think, truthfully, I went into this not expecting to finish an outline. I think I went into this with the idea that, I'd probably give up because, outlining is not my strength. I think I walked away with an appreciation for it. I think I walked away with a concept that I feel is stronger because I went through the outlining process, while keeping myself able to do creative things with the plot. I think there's a lot of places I can grow and add on, and this just feels like overall it's good. So, it feels organic, which I think is the best way to put it, and it just made sense logically. So, thanks for following along, guys. I really appreciate it. And if you like this channel, please like and subscribe, and I will catch everyone on the next video. Thanks again for watching. I'll catch you then. Bye.